saying they're doing it to protect us. But the coronavirus has, I think, a survivor rate almost 98%, 99%. And
No, please, let's not get into the damn COVID death numbers.
I definitely think that there should be this control in place to who buys guns. You couldn't just be able to go to a store and buy a gun. There should be regulations into who buys guns and who shoots a gun.
Well, then it's not a human right.
I never understood why anyone posted political opinions on social media. I think.
Yeah, who would do that? That's absolutely crazy. AiA episode 36, Conservative Teens versus Liberal Parents. Finally, reacting to another episode of Jubilee's Middle Ground, one of my favorite series from Jubilee. They actually haven't uploaded a Middle Ground episode in over 2 months. Prior to this episode, they uploaded yesterday. That's kind of why I haven't been reacting to them. But there actually was a really pseudo part 1 to this episode. It was actually, I checked back, AiA episode 16 was liberal teens versus conservative parents, and now this is the exact opposite. We are doing conservative teens versus liberal parents. Now, obviously, if you haven't watched my videos before, I want to make this clear up front. I am someone on the left, so I just want to make that clear. I am going in this with a bias, but I will try to listen to everyone's arguments like I do in all these Jubilee Middle Ground videos. They're just absolutely great in my opinion. Listening to all people's basically opinions and sides and perspectives on how they come to ideas and thoughts and perspectives, it's absolutely amazing. But anyways, enough of me rambling, let's get into this episode.
Middle Ground is a social experiment that brings humans with opposing beliefs together. These discussions may contain viewpoints that are the result of misinformation. Remember to seek out experts and to be critical of your own biases while forming an opinion. Please see the humanity in each participant, and as always, we encourage empathy.
You're equating some minor inconveniences in your privileged life to
why would you assume my life is privileged?
Unsupported.
But why would you assume my life is privileged, though? I mean, I don't say that about you. Why would you assume my life is privileged?
I'm privileged.
Okay, that's fine, but why would you assume my life is privileged?
For one, you're a man.
Step forward if you agree with the prompt. The government has no right to tell people what to do with their body.
Okay, just as a little bit of a side note here, always before the prompt, I will either agree or disagree with it before the people actually come up and either agree or disagree with it. So, in my opinion, let's see, the government has no right to tell people what to do with their body. Sorry for the long pauses here and also pausing the video, but I'm really trying to think about this. I would say the government does have a very small amount of right for people to do with their body. And the only reason I say that in the sense of protection, like for instance, in the middle of a pandemic for vaccine mandates, I know a lot of people are very, they're on separate sides on that coin. I don't think the conservative teens would agree with that, but I know the liberal parents probably would. But as for like body modifications, like tattoos, piercings, surgical body modifications, anything like that, I don't think the government does have that right. But if it's like for protecting other citizens, like when it comes to diseases and the pandemic and stuff like that, I do think the government has somewhat of a right to actually implement those things. But and maybe the also regulation of very, very hard drugs, like for instance, like crack cocaine or something like that. That's something I would also agree with too. But I can't really think of anything else. That's what I would say. I would say the government does have a right for to tell people what to do with their bodies in that way. But in other ways, I don't think so. Again, this prompt is very broad, so I don't know how everyone's going to interpret it here. But yeah, anyways, let's see.
Has no right to tell people what to do with their body.
Vaccines.
That's
Good one.
yeah, I don't think the government has the right to tell you what you want
I'm
to
gonna
do with your.
step back, sorry.
Okay. I stood here because of vaccines, but I know a lot of you guys probably look at me like, oh, what about abortion? Now, the thing is, when it comes to abortion, two bodies are involved. It's the woman and it's the fetus. The fetus, you know, has a heartbeat, it has DNA. It should have rights.
When?
Life begins at conception.
That's not when the heart's there.
Heartbeat starts at 4 weeks. It's not just a clump of cells, it is life. At 21 weeks, it can live outside of the womb. Abortion ends with murder and death.
Over 90% of abortions happen within the first 10 weeks.
That's still, I think that's not acceptable.
But they still have the potential of having life, though. The mortality rate of a fetus getting aborted is 100%. It's going to die when it's aborted.
And you're very lucky you'll never have to experience what it's like to have to make that choice.
But what if
True. Oh my gosh. I think these liberal parents are really going to grill into these kids because, well, I hate to call them kids, teens. I'm not saying they're unknowledgeable for what they're saying, but I think they are, I don't know, when you engage in these topics, right? And, you know, you have limited knowledge, you have to be very careful of what you say. And when you say something like very outspoken on a certain topic, people are going to try to corner you. And also, this is, again, a little bit, the teams are a little bit offset. We only have 3 teens versus 4 liberal parents. So it's like the teens are already outnumbered. And plus, well, there's 4 liberal parents and 3 teens. So again, they're a little bit outnumbered here. But I kind of get the idea of how this sort of rest of this episode's going to go. But I need to stop pausing because we're already 6 minutes into the video and we're only 2 minutes into the actual reaction. So
what if I become a father and, you know, the woman who I got pregnant wants to have an abortion? It's going to affect me.
You would have a discussion with your partner then and decide what you're going to do and be glad that you have a choice to even discuss with that partner.
Unfortunately, human nature, if you take away the option or the right to do that, then they'll find it another way.
And it will be unsafe.
And
So if
would
I
you
don't have a
support the
choice-
mom? Would you support the mom in that scenario?
If the mom had an abortion or the
No,
mom went...
no, if she gave birth.
Oh, of course. I would support her. I'd say what you do is a good thing. And
No, support her financially for the rest of her life or for the rest of the baby's life.
Are you talking about, like, what do you mean me support her? Like, as a citizen or?
If somebody has a baby,
We do have child support and it comes from...
oh my gosh, dude, answer the question. Like, oh man, it's one of those things that infuriates me. Like when you have these, again, they're hard discussions. I know that I have to put that in my head, but when you have these conversations, you have to be willing to answer questions. And he asked a very basic question. He dodged it, the teen. The older guy asked the question again. The teen dodged it again. And now he's going off on a tangent of we have child support and stuff like this. It's like, no, just answer the question. If you're this radical when it comes to, like, you know, no, I don't think that abortion should be legal whatsoever. I think that it should be 100% illegal, that if you get pregnant, then you should have the baby. Be a little, you know, have that same energy when she actually does have the baby. Like, this is, again, I hate to use the, like, basic liberal talking point, but it feels like to me when I have these conversations with conservatives, which I have before, or these pro-life people, they're always very, they have these high energy when it comes to the mother actually carrying out the baby. But when it actually comes to the baby being born, and for the next, like, 18 years of its life, not much is talked about. And I don't know, I just feel it's kind of an odd thing, but hey, that's just me and my experience.
Taxpayer money.
There's foster care, there's adoption, there's mothers waiting.
those systems are very broken, and people all the time are trying to stop funding for programs like that.
Now, I want to ask you guys, do you support vaccine mandates?
Yes.
So I mean, you stepped forward and said the government shouldn't tell you what to do with your body, though. Why would you support?
My issue is that I believe that the government should not be able to tell me what to do with my body, but I have to accept the consequences for the choices that I make with my body. The vaccines, for instance, I absolutely felt that everyone should get vaccinated. Why? Because this was a pandemic. But if you don't want to, I don't think the government should have to tell you that you have to. But you then have to suffer the consequences of your choices, which means you cannot patronize certain places. You can't put other people at risk.
I know you.
True. Man, I was honestly going to add on to her take there, but that was like absolutely perfect. And like my position with vaccines, like if you go back and when I actually had a conservative, a young conservative on my show before, we actually talked about vaccines. And I told him my take of like, I don't think the government should be able to tell you to get the vaccine outright. I think you should be able to make that choice for yourself, but you have to accept the consequences when actually getting one. And you also have to accept the consequences of maybe not getting certain jobs because you're not vaccinated. And like, you don't have the right to just patronize that job anymore, or at least you shouldn't, because it's like, hey, they have this requirement and that's something that you chose to do with yourself. So again, it's I have that same exact take. That was a perfect take by her, by the way.
I know you're saying they're doing it to protect us, but the coronavirus has, I think, a survivor rate almost 98%, 99%. And
No. Please, let's not get into the damn COVID death numbers. Oh my gosh, we're really going to get into this debate. We're really going to, oh my God, I mean, I honestly, it's so weird to me, but like, I hate these sort of COVID debaters that would bring up the 98, 99% of people survive. It's like, yeah, 1%, 2% of people are dying, but look how many people have got infected around the world. Like, isn't that insane? Like, look how many people we've lost in the United States. There's over 1 million deaths because of COVID in the United States. 1 million. 1 million. Just in the United States. You know, that's a lot of death. And yeah, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, 98% of people or 99% of people survive. That doesn't matter. 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 50 people die. Of course there needs to be a vaccine. And I guarantee the flu is going to be brought up in this argument, probably in the next 2 sentences, when the flu is way less deadly than COVID, and we do have vaccines for it.
we're mandating these vaccines. Why are we not mandating the flu?
What's frightening to me is that you're equating some minor inconveniences in your privileged life to
Why would you assume my life is privileged?
unsupported.
You live in the United States, of course your life is privileged. Are you really going to make that argument?
But why would you assume my life is privileged, though? You don't know my life. I mean, I don't say that about you. Why would you assume my life is
Again, it's pretty obvious that your life is privileged because you have nice clothes, you have a fresh haircut, you live in the United States. I guarantee your life is privileged. I would think that pretty much anyone, unless you're from like a first world country like in Europe or Australia or New Zealand, and you're from the US, you have a privileged life. Anyone outside of those countries that I named, or like Europe, Australia, New Zealand, or the US, or Canada, for instance, every other country would be saying you're privileged, you know? You have a lot more privileges than you think. Like, again, maybe I'm just using the global argument here, but yeah, of course, it's pretty easy to assume that most Americans' lives are privileged.
I'm privileged.
Okay, that's fine, but why would you assume my life is privileged?
For one, you're a man.
You know, most people commit suicide are men. Most people who work in dangerous workplaces are men. Most people who fight in war are men.
And who set that system up?
Damn.
I'm going to ask the disagreeers to step forward.
Well, I think I give a unique perspective on this because I actually do agree with the vaccine mandate. I think COVID was just a huge disaster, and I think it could have ended a lot sooner if things were more organized.
Definitely. As far as whether the government should intervene on people's bodies, I think there are a lot of instances where the government should. One, to protect the society in general, especially in cases such as a pandemic where the disease could literally wipe out cities. In other instances as well, such as drug use, I think the government should intervene because when you have a society that's addicted to opioids or crack, it spreads like wildfire. And I've seen it firsthand. It's very difficult to control without the help of government. Now, on the topic of abortion, that one's, very complex. And in general, I always want to favor a woman's right to choose. But I think there's also a very fundamental question that both of you brought up is at what point is a fetus a human or a person? Let's say a child is 8 months in the womb, and at that point, the baby has a heart, the baby has a brain, has legs, has arms. Do you think it's okay for that to be terminated?
Nobody is doing that, and nobody is having abortions with viable fetuses unless it is a medical emergency that will kill the baby and the mother.
True.
My name is Ben. I'm a business consultant for a
I really like Ben, at least from the take he had there. It was really good, by the way.
telecom company, and I'm a liberal dad. When it comes to the abortion issue, I am not exactly sure where I stand. I am not pro-choice or pro-life.
My name is Dawn. I'm a regional sales manager for a dialysis company as well as a therapist, and I'm a liberal parent. As far as my views on abortion, to be honest, it just makes me very sad. I can't believe that we are moving backwards by taking people's rights away to choose what's happening to their body.
Not being an LGBTQ plus ally makes someone a bad person.
I would disagree with this because, you know, that's kind of like saying that you have to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community to be a good person. And I don't believe that. Now, when it comes to like actually respecting those people, I think that makes you a good person. But I think you can respect them and not be a part of their community. I don't know if I would associate with myself with the LGBTQ plus community, but you know, I definitely respect them. So interesting to see what happens. Surprising.
It's strong, isn't it? It's a little
It's a
strong.
general way to put it. I would question someone's empathy.
That's it.
And their awareness of the other people around them, because I guarantee you, you know someone that's
Absolutely,
LGBTQ.
and their environment.
Right. Discussing the validity of the existence of other human beings isn't a political issue. That's like...
It's there. whether you
There's
like it
something
or not.
wrong with you
Yes.
if you like, no, trans people don't exist. Obviously they do. I would like to think that it's a safer world
Yes.
to be LGBTQ, but that
Yes.
would be naive.
Of course.
People are getting murdered for being trans, you know,
Yes. Yes.
and gay. It's scary. I have 3 kids. I have 3 boys.
Oh.
One of them is trans.
That's why she stepped up.
I worry that, I mean, for however progressive a new generation seems, that, you know, I have to think about, will there be violence done? Which, I mean, every parent worries about violence. That's part of the gig of being a parent.
Yes.
And I've got an extra, I've got a new layer. My child is in a wonderfully privileged situation where they have a lot of support.
Okay, that helps.
But as they get older,
As you
their
get-
circle
as
gets
your circle
wider,
gets wider,
and
you-
my sphere of influence gets less effective as
Yes.
they get older, you
Yeah.
know? Hi, I'm Cindy. I am a stay-at-home mom, and I am a liberal parent. One of my children came out as trans 2 years ago. Mine and my husband's response was, that's great. Would you like to go by these pronouns? And would you like to pick out a name? Let's make sure that we talk to a gender specialist so we know what options there are, and we'll just take this one step at a time. We'll move forward with the best information possible.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
I can provide a unique perspective on this because I'm actually bisexual. So I think not being an ally, as long as you're not harming people, you're not harassing people, you're not posting on social media that these people suck, then I don't think you're a bad person for that.
As a Christian, I don't think that being LGBTQ aligns with God's view of the family. It doesn't mean that I will disrespect them in any way. I just think that it's a sin.
As far as your faith is concerned, what would happen if your child came out to you that they were gay, bisexual, trans?
I think that if the sin is not practiced upon, it's not a problem. It can be dealt with, especially with transitioning. It usually comes from mental problems like depression, anxiety, and all those things.
So you think they can be kind of taught to not be gay?
No, I
Pray
think
the
it's,
gay away.
Do you support conversion therapy?
no, I don't think that we can convert anyone into doing anything. I would not ostracize my child, but I would not support it, just like I don't support any sin.
Weird how she said that. I'm trying to think back. She said that, you know, as long as it's not practiced on. So you're basically saying for them not to be gay or trans or bisexual or whatever, you just cannot engage in that behavior, basically. So she's basically saying, at least from what I'm interpreting here, if she had a kid and she didn't want them practicing upon that sin, if, you know, for instance, they were gay, then that's like not having sex. So again, that's a form of like suppression. I would think that's even worse than disrespecting, because, you know, then you're just not allowing them to engage in, you know, who they are. But it's, yeah, that's quite odd. I think that her first opinion before, you know, they brought up the example of her, you know, what if her kid was like that, she wouldn't disrespect them, which I, you know, 100% agree with. But then the kid example was a little odd to me.
So I think that if you want to be transgender, you could be transgender. We live in again, I said, a free nation. But if you're asking for my opinion, I believe that men and women are completely different. We have different chromosomes, different bone structure. If you are a transgender woman, I still view you as a man. You could, you know, express yourself as a woman, that's fine. But I don't believe that society should automatically, you know, say that, okay, you're a woman. Let's say, for instance, there's a 18-year-old biological man, but says that they are a woman now. They still have male genitalia. They could walk into a woman's locker room and show off their male genitalia. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's okay.
That's not happening.
It is happening, though.
Is it really happening?
That is literally transphobia.
It could happen, though.
It's rare, though, but
and not even.
I mean, I hate to bring up the intersex argument, but there are intersex people that are born with the opposite genitalia of their sex. So again, these arguments, even though that they are very fringe, you know, they're outlier cases, very rare, but they still do happen. And it's, again, something that needs to be taken into account. And trans people are still an outlying sort of people. It's not like they're a large percentage of the population, just like with intersex people are not a large percentage of the population. So, you know, at least if a conservative person or a person who has this sort of take on this position, or, you know, whatever he said there of an 18-year-old male going into female bathrooms and showing his genitalia, then what if an intersex person did that? And that was like, and they were actually a woman, but they were born with male genitalia. Again, it's something to think about, but again, I would love to hear that response.
A trans, it could just be a creepy guy, like pretending to be.
Yes, creepy guys are. I'm in much more danger in a women's restroom from a cisgender, straight, creepy guy
I know, but
than I am a
that
trans
gives
person.
them the excuse, you know. That's what I'm trying to say.
So do you support gender-neutral bathrooms, like women and men
Yes.
can go into the same bathroom? Do you think that could increase the chances of rape or assault?
They already exist. It's interesting that men are only concerned about this rape in the bathroom when we're having a conversation about trans folk.
But gender-neutral bathrooms just stem from this idea, though.
No, this idea that rape is going to suddenly go on the rise because of gender-neutral bathrooms stems from transphobia.
I'm Eden, I'm 16 years old, and I'm on the conservative teen side. I think that transitioning does more harm than good, and I think that we are born in the body that we're given, and we should stay that way. God has created us in His image, and I don't think we should change the way we are.
Owning a gun is a basic human right.
I would say, I don't think it's a human right. No, because if I said it was a human right, if I agreed with that, then everyone could have a gun. And I don't agree with everyone having a gun. Obviously, if you have a history of violence or long criminal history or a history of drug abuse or mental issues or have some sort of mental disability, then no, I don't think own a gun. That excludes not a good amount of the population, but a decent amount. But if you are a fully able-bodied person and you're, you know, right mentally, you don't have a history of previous violence or whatever, then yeah, I think that owning a gun should be a privilege, not a right. And I think a lot of people misconstrue that, is that owning a gun is a privilege.
I absolutely hate hearing about school shootings on the news and just shootings in general. It's horrible. You know, this isn't like, you know, Spider-Man's not going to save people. People have the right to protect themselves.
A lot of mass shooters target gun-free zones because they know there's not going to be a person who's going to fight against them or shoot them back. There's a lot of mass shootings at schools, and that's because schools have gun-free zones. I view owning a gun as a right to defend myself. You look at countries that have banned guns in the past, the USSR, Nazi Germany, you look at China under Mao Zedong, they stripped their citizens of arms so they could oppress them. And I think the reason why our founding fathers enshrined the Second Amendment is because they wanted us to protect ourselves against tyrannical government and to protect ourselves against danger around us too.
I think that from a woman's perspective, if as a woman you get into a dangerous situation, for example with a man, having a gun and knowing how to use a gun is the only way that will protect me. Having my tiny little pepper spray won't help me forever. I think definitely if you take away guns, the bad guys will always get their guns one way or another.
I live in Los Angeles, and LA has strict gun control laws. This is my perspective of it. I think LA has become a more dangerous city, and I feel very unsafe walking down the street just not armed. Crime is on the rise in America, and I think one of the ways to stop crime is by owning a gun.
I definitely think that there should be this control in place to who buys guns. You couldn't just be able to go to a store and buy a gun. There should be regulations into who buys guns and who shoots a gun.
Well, then it's not a human right. Okay, don't say anything. Don't be a woman hater. I'm not an incel, I swear. But Jesus Christ, they did not. Again, did they miss half the prompt? Basic human right. A basic human right means every human should be able to have that right. And they did not address that whatsoever. You know, owning a gun is a privilege in my opinion. I'm a gun owner. I own multiple guns. It's a privilege to own a gun. I don't think every wacko should have a gun. And, you know, she said that, you know, there should be laws and regulations for owning a gun, but yet she walked up to the prompt saying it was a basic human right. So again, confusing, women bad, incel, hate, whatever.
I actually debated whether or not I was going to sit down because I do believe people have the right to bear arms. I do. My issue is what kind of arms they're bearing. I believe people should get to go hunt, but do you need a semi-automatic rifle to do that? I'll tell you personally, I'm afraid of guns personally myself, but I just think there need to be stricter regulations with it.
But the majority of people who die by gunshot are women in a domestic violence situation. So mass shootings definitely don't want automatic rifles, against that, nobody needs them, but the most dangerous gun is the one in your home.
I do want to ask you a question. Do you think that women should have the right to bear arms to protect themselves against?
Yeah, I'm not against the right to own guns. The prompt was, do you think owning a gun is a human right?
But do you think?
And I don't agree with that.
In my perspective, I grew up in a gun-riddled neighborhood. I myself am a gun owner now because of the fact that I had to create some type of means of self-defense.
So why did you disagree?
I disagree because I would prefer not to be. I think it's not a human right as much as almost a necessity for a lot of people. And not everyone. There's a lot of neighborhoods that are very safe, but even in a safe neighborhood, you can be robbed, you can be killed. I've been stuck up several times with a gun to my face, you know, and all I could think of is, man, if I die, it's gonna be because I didn't have a weapon to help protect me.
Do you think that we should take away all guns from the entire world?
Yes, if there was like a magnet, like Magneto from X-Men, and he just suck up all the guns, I think that would be such a better place.
And I really like Ben, but man, he had a really good opinion there too. If all guns could be removed in the world, would that be a better place to live? I think so. In an ideal society, no guns would exist because it's only a danger. Even if everyone was absolutely perfect, accidents do happen, misfires happen, and it would just be a danger that, again, like it would be a much safer society if no guns ever existed. But yeah, he has really good takes. I wish he would talk more. Anyways, next prompt. My political opinions have hurt my relationships with my friends and family. I would say yes for me, just because my family is quite conservative, and I'm probably one of the only like left-leaning people in my family. And there are obviously some people in my family that are left-leaning, but most of the people in my family, you know, grew up in the South. I grew up in the South, heavily conservative, heavily religious, even more conservative than like her, for instance, because obviously she's like very religious and has talked about it multiple times through this. Every time she talks, she brings up God. That is what kind of my family is like. So I would say it's kind of hurt my relationships, but not like a ton.
My political opinions have hurt my relationships with friends and family.
During 2020, when America got really like politically intense, my teacher, she was very politically active, and she wanted us to speak our voices. And they found I was conservative, and they said, "Okay, you're completely going against what we believe. Like the whole school is very liberal," and I guess they just kind of pushed me away.
Did you feel like you would get bullied after?
I'll just get looks. Some people come up and say, "You're a racist," or "You're xenophobic." They would tell me, "Oh, do you support Trump?" But I just brushed it off. I told them, "Hey, I respect that you think like this. Please respect me."
I think that is, whether or not we have the same ideas, I think that is still an admirable quality.
Yeah.
Despite getting looks or feeling like maybe you don't belong, that you're still, you have your convictions.
Yeah.
So I can respect that you're convicted.
Yeah.
I think being liberal, we think of the right as being stuck in the sand. It's interesting to hear that liberals were not having his right opinion. I think that everyone should have their opinion.
Well, I think we're talking about issues that aren't a matter of opinion, but a matter of your morality, the value of human lives. I've had to personally block a few people on Facebook, family members.
Oh, wow.
Mostly men that are married to the women in my family. I'm like, hey, this conversation is really getting personal and hurtful, and if you carry on this way, I'm gonna have to block you.
Were they harassing you?
I feel very harassed, yeah, I'm belittled.
Were you ostracized, or was there someone that you...
I think on my end, it was myself. I understand people have different beliefs, and I respect that. And I think it's good for everyone to share their beliefs. That's the way we progress. But I think when people become ignorant or offensive consistently without any type of evidence or any type of backup behind that, that's the point where I say, you know what? I probably shouldn't be friends with you, because you may smile in my face, but behind my back, you have a different sentiment.
I haven't lost any relationships because me and my friends don't really dive into politics. We kind of just play video games and talk about comics together. I think if you lose a relationship over politics, that's kind of sad.
Unfortunately, it's a part of growing up.
Yeah, for sure.
Hopefully you won't lose any friends, but usually as you get older, you start to see those divides a little clearer.
I mean, you guys are
sometimes.
older than us. Was it like this going back 20 years ago?
Politics has changed so much, and I think you touched on it, that now it's being associated, policy is being associated with ethics. I haven't lost any friendships or relationships because I won't allow that to happen. I believe that the majority of us, probably about 80%, are in the middle with varying degrees. And there are those people who are very, very conservative, very, very ultra-liberal, who are the outliers.
But I think it's subtle. Where you have somebody that you meet with on a regular basis, you talk with them, you have a good time. If topics get brought up, and it's a oh, okay, you're one of those. They don't tell you that to your face, but it's kind of subtle.
And also, I think with the prevalence of social media, people's opinions are a lot more out there.
I never understood why anyone posted political opinions on social media. I think
Yeah, who would do that? That's absolutely crazy. I couldn't think of anyone that would do that. Haha.
it's just annoying.
Well, I have 3 kids. They know more about politics than I did
know.
when I was of voting age.
It's annoying, yeah.
I think it's very encouraging because they're going to be more informed when they are of voting age.
I mean, yeah, it makes life more divisive. I mean, there's more arguments and stuff, and more relationships ending because politics is such a big part of life.
Hi, my name is Scott. I am a liberal parent. I have many children. I have 4. My oldest daughter is extremely left-wing. My 2 middle daughters are roughly right in the middle there. And then Chase is conservative.
My name is Chase. I'm 19 years old, and I'm on the conservative teen side. My dad's Scott. We talk about politics, mostly gun rights and the government in the economy. We disagree, but we like hearing each other's side.
The feminist movement is overrated.
Overrated. I wouldn't agree with that. I think the feminist movement doing the correct things. Are they a little out there at times? Yes. But overrated, no, because there's obviously a divide between men and women in society. So, I mean, if we're pushing for, just pure equal between men and women, obviously I think they're trying that at the moment. And, I still think we have, at least ground to move forward. We still have things to do. But yeah, I think it has, the first, I think there's 3 ways of feminism as they describe it in history. We've done a lot in those 3 waves, but we still have some stuff to do. So I wouldn't say it's overrated. No. Interesting.
The reason I sat down is because feminism as we know it in social media and the marches is generally run by white women, and
True.
we don't have a lot of intersectionality. Margaret Sanger?
Yeah,
yes. And
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony, total.
I mean, at least what I would say to that, the whole like feminism is run by white women type of thing, it's really always been that way. And I don't necessarily would equate that with racism. The only reason is that white people tend to be the most liberal, crazy enough, and especially the most socially liberal people. Like if you've actually ever talked to, other people in the United States, for instance, like the, Hispanic community, Black community, whatever, these are people who are very socially conservative. I consider myself a socially conservative person. These people are very socially conservative. So again, it makes sense to me that, white women are the most liberal people in society, across the board in the United States. And they are the most socially liberal people in the United States. So it makes sense that the movement nowadays, and even 100 years ago, has always been led by them. And even now, it is still prominently led by them.
Racist. The women that headed up the suffragette movement, they were not inclusive.
Of course, yes.
And they wanted rights for white women.
That's true.
And that thread has followed us to be very exclusionary to Black women, disabled women, women of color, indigenous women.
I don't think that feminism in America is based off racism. The reason why there's more white feminists is because there's a higher white population in America.
I mean, that's I think a stupid argument to make. I don't think he's really looking at it with a better view. If you actually know the statistics on the demographics of the United States, it's that white women are more socially liberal. That's the reason. It's not because they're a higher population.
Generally, there's going to be more white feminists because of that.
I think that definitely in the beginning of feminism, feminists wanted votes for women, that women would be allowed to work, would be allowed to go to universities and such. I definitely agree with that, but I think that feminism has gone too far into saying my body, my choice, and saying that women are not all equal, saying that women are being suppressed by white men and such things.
I mean, if you want to get into it, women are still suppressed in certain areas of society. I don't know why she added white men to that sort of end of her take, but yeah, I mean, women are still suppressed in society, but it's in very, certain fields, I would say. Certain fields. Like, for instance, the field that I work in IT, in computer science. And before, like, video games were, like, heavily a thing, computer science was 50-50 men and women. And then when video games came along and was marketed towards men, then men became very interested in computer science. And if you grow up being very influenced by video games, playing a lot of them, playing on the computer, recognize the computer, then once you go off to university or choosing your major to go off to university, it's very easy to pick computer science or technology or whatever. And women, since video games aren't marketed to them, they probably, haven't played them all their life. And you kind of can't make up 18 years of learned knowledge like these men have been learning. So when they go off to university, they're just excelling in computer science, engineering, technology, and women just aren't. So I would still say that, yeah, women are still suppressed in society, but it's in very small ways and subtle ways. But I would also say that men are suppressed in society too, because, like, for instance, nurses are heavily marketed towards women, and they're not marketed towards men at all. And men, there's not a lot of men nurses. So again, men are suppressed in society too. I try to play both sides of the coin here, but yeah, we still have progress to make.
No, we got a long way to go. There's just not enough done.
In America or just in the world in general?
Well, America, for sure. The world in general is a heck of a lot worse than America.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think that women should be able to do everything that men can, but we also have to protect ourselves. So if you want to be a stay-at-home mom and do one of the hardest jobs on the planet, you absolutely should be able to do that. But you should also discuss with your partner and put in things into place so that you're protected if you choose to do that. Some women aren't doing that, like life insurance and things like that. I think part of feminism is being able to take care of yourself.
Capitalism is failing our society.
Oh man. I'm going to try to give a somewhat not controversial take here. And at least in the United States, capitalism is very good for the top 10 to 20% of people. If you're in the top 10 to 20% of earners, I think capitalism is very prosperous for you. It's very nice. But if you're in like the bottom 80, it doesn't matter if you're in like the top 40% or in the bottom 80%, whatever. You are struggling paycheck to paycheck. And you don't have, and you're literally, it's sink or swim every day. One little thing could bankrupt you. And that's the thing that I really dislike about at least our capitalism here in the United States, because if one little thing goes wrong for you, you're basically screwed. If your car doesn't start one day, you could lose your job. And then how are you going to fix your car? And then how you're going to, get to work every day? How are you going to pay your bills? And then, before you know it, you're evicted. Those things happen. And it is such sink or swim. I'm very glad that I was able to go to college. I had the privilege to go to college. I got multiple degrees. I now have a nice office job that, I'm very comfortable in. And, I'm a lot more comfortable than a lot of people. But even still, myself, if certain little things could happen to me, I could easily fall from where I'm at, and I've been building myself up for, ever since I got out of high school. It's been over 4 years now. I've been building myself up, and a couple things could happen and I could be totally screwed. Especially we talk about, we haven't even talked about medical, if you're uninsured, or for instance, if you like break your arm outside of work or something, like it doesn't happen, actually while you're working, or, whatever, your company could actually drop you and you could lose your medical insurance. And then before you know it, you're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to the hospital just to repair your arm. And, I've seen that happen before with people, is that they get one little injury outside of work, and, the work could just fire them because, hey, they're injured, they're not coming to work. They can do that because, hey, free market capitalism. And guess what? You don't have any medical insurance anymore. And since our medical care is so high in America, it's the number one in the world. But guess what? You're going to be paying thousands of dollars for it. It's very sad. And to me, I don't think capitalism is failing our society. I think it's bleeding it dry. And I think it's making people live on the edge. I advocate for nationalized healthcare system. You know, that's one of the things that I've always advocated for. Like when I first got into politics, like, 8 years ago at this point, that was one of my first things. Like, how could most Americans deny this, or why aren't we pushing for this more national healthcare system? I also would advocate for more social safety nets, for more wealth distribution, for not raising the taxes on the rich, but for closing the tax loopholes. I think if we were able to take those steps to do those certain things, America would be a much better place to live in.
This system that just values production, consumerism until you die doesn't work for anybody but a very, very, very small percentage of billionaires. And it's all baloney. The system is rigged to keep workers working, and the rich just keep getting richer.
Yeah, I think there could be some good in capitalism, which is like the innovation part of it. But in general, capitalism definitely sucks from the poor. There's a lot of industries that definitely shouldn't have any capitalism involved at all. The medical field, it's unjust that certain people get better care than other people just because they're more financially well off. Who are they to determine the value of life? The healthcare system creates such profit, and that profit is created off the misery of others, of the illness of others, including the prison system, where you have jails that are privately owned, because at that point, what you have is a hotel, and you want to fill up the hotel. Why would there be a business that profits off of crime? That doesn't make any sense. If you put profit ahead of people, people are going to suffer, obviously.
Ben is absolutely based.
So you said like only the billionaires succeed in capitalism, and I gotta disagree with that, because I'm the CEO of my own company. A couple months ago I started a jewelry company, and I'm not a billionaire, but it's been relatively successful enough to I can make rent and go through college a bit. So I think there's people like me who own a small business who capitalism really benefits.
If capitalism isn't the solution, then what is the solution?
Do you want to hear it?
Socialism?
Socialism.
So the problem with democratic socialism, you talk about how capitalism hurts the middle class, but in reality, if democratic socialism was tried, the middle class are going to be paying way more taxes, not just the rich. You see, the rich don't pay taxes.
Not under the American system. If you look at the data, like for instance, if you're taking the United Kingdom, for instance, like their national healthcare system, the NHS, if that was to be implemented in the United States, we would actually be paying less taxes, because we pay more taxes in just our premiums for our premium health insurance that we don't use. We pay this much in our premium health insurance on our paycheck every month that we don't even realize how much it really is. And again, he's going to make the argument that, democratic socialism doesn't work. You can look at a lot of other countries in Europe that are a lot more mixed economy than us, and they are, in my opinion, doing a lot better.
Taxes because they don't work. They make money off assets. The middle class, they work. And because they're working, they're going to pay more taxes under a proposal like Bernie Sanders or, I don't know, AOC or Ilhan Omar.
I personally am okay with paying higher taxes. I would love people who make billions of dollars to pay their fair share of taxes. But increased taxes for a better situation for people overall, that is exactly what I stand for.
I'm not sure that socialism is the answer. Yugoslavia before World War II did okay, but they didn't do all that great, and they were taken over quite quickly. What I'm thinking is capitalism, although is not the best solution, is one of the best solutions for a democratic society.
Think about socialism, you think about wealth distribution. And then money becomes a very big role too, because the ones that have less money become envious of those that have more money. And then money is it becomes a god, because you don't want anyone else to have that money but yourself. And if you, for example, look at the Scandinavian countries, they have a capitalistic market, but they have a socialist wealth distribution. And that's why it works over there. And I personally come from Europe, so I have seen that.
So you think that works?
I personally don't think that works. I think it takes a lot of money from the rich and from the middle class.
You really, oh my God. He really doesn't think it works. Again, I wish I could have a conversation with her about that, but if you can look at the data, always wanted to look at the data. I do that with everything. But if you look at the data with European countries, the people tend to be a lot more well off there than the poor here. Like the poor in other countries tend to be way better off than here. Because, for instance, a poor person in pretty much any European country can go to the doctor and get proper medical care, when someone not even in the bottom like 50% can just go to the doctor. Because again, even just a it could be an expensive $200 to $300. And again, for some people, hearing that is not that big of an expense. But for a lot of working class Americans that are working paycheck to paycheck, a $200 to $300 expense to go to the doctor is absolutely absurd. And, again, a lot of things could be solved with just a national healthcare system. I don't know why people don't advocate for it more. You can look at the success in the UK, which is a quite similar country to us. At least how they run their government and stuff, we kind of stylized out of certain things. But I mean, if you were able to look at another country for inspiration, you can even look at Canada, for instance. But if you were to look at these other countries that we have very close relationships with and see that they have a national healthcare system and it really works for them, and the fact that, they're poor doing a lot better than our poor, it might be something to think about. And I wish this could happen in the United States, a capitalistic market with a socialism distribution method. I think it would just, especially in the United States, make the middle class even richer, because again, we don't realize how rich the people are, the top 1% are in the United States. Like, we have more billionaires than anywhere in the world. There's not a lot of billionaires in Scandinavia. So just try to think about that thought there when you think about wealth distribution.
My name is Nathan. I'm 18 years old. I would like to ask the other side if they believe America is the greatest country in the world. If they disagree with that, I want to know what country they believe is better than America. I do believe it's a blessing and it's a privilege to live in a country that gives you the liberty and freedom and to express who you want to be.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess I will answer that question because I don't know if I'll get the chance to ask that. I think there are many countries in the world that are better than the United States. Sadly, I wish I could say the United States was the best country in the world, but simply the data does not show that. There are many other countries that are better on many other factors. So you can look at life expectancy, wellness of living, the quality of life, for instance, how much you get paid, the social services, what you get out of that country, the crime rate. You can go into any statistic, but some of the best countries to live in would be Finland, Norway, Sweden, Scandinavian countries, Denmark. I would go as far as even say the UK, Iceland, Ireland. I could keep going, honestly. I think there are a lot of good countries to live in other than the United States, at least from, all of those factors. If you're just merely looking at the data, that's what it would say. Now, from a culture standpoint, that's purely subjective because all of these different countries that I just named have different cultures than the United States. So if you think the culture in the United States is the best, then hey, that's for you. And also in the United States, I guess you get more things like freedom, for instance, freedom to own, more guns and kind of say whatever you want. But I would be willing to give up those rights if it meant a better quality of life and a higher life expectancy. It's also quite interesting. This is a fun fact that you can look up and do your own research about, is that the United States is one of the only developing countries that the life expectancy is decreasing. So basically every other developing nation, its life expectancy is increasing, and the United States is actually decreasing, which is kind of sad because apparently we have the best, medical system or best, medic care in the world, but yet our citizens are dying faster and faster. So again, quite odd, but.
American dream is dead.
Oh, and then as for the American dream, is it dead? No, I wouldn't say it's dead because people are still coming here, obviously. but I would say that it is dying. I think less and less people want to come to the United States because they could realize the different other opportunities in the other countries. For instance, anywhere in Europe or any other developing nation in the world, they can see that and be like, hey, these are other good opportunities. But, I would say that, yeah, the United States dream is, the American dream is dying slowly.
I gotta say, I disagree with the phrase American dream. An American dream for who? The Native Americans we slaughtered, the enslaved people. I mean, this.
True, actually, I wasn't even thinking about that. The American dream, the indigenous people that were here, they were slaughtered. That wasn't their dream. And the African people we brought over on boats to be slaves, I don't think that was their dream. So yeah, I think it's quite odd, and especially because the American dream term was coined in the 30s, and even then, Black people didn't even have equal rights in the United States. So I think that's also a very important thing to kind of remember here, because the American dream is a very white thing, and I think that's safe to say. It's a very white sort of kind of picturesque you think in your mind when you think of the American dream.
Romantic idea that there's this dream is just basically marketing for capitalism. It's very well funded propaganda, and has it inspired good acts and good people to do good things? Of course, because ultimately, in a large sense, humanity is good. But this idea of the American dream, I think, is I think the fantasy of it is being torn apart a little bit. And I think that's actually exciting because it opens up room for something better, something more inclusive to grow.
I think the phrase is kind of corny, but the idea that someone's like building themselves up in capitalism, I feel like that I kind of have done that a bit with my business. So I don't think it's dead.
I do think the American dream is dying, though. The American dream now is not the same as it was 30 years ago. Have a family, buy a home, have a great job, but now it's very difficult to buy a home. Income has not increased compared to the price of a house. I do think it's dying, though, but I don't think it's completely dead, because there's a lot of immigrants who are still trying to come to America. America does have the highest immigrant population. 14% of our population are immigrants. We have a lot of people on our southern border, and I think they all want to come to America.
Yeah, I think the American dream still exists, and I can speak firsthand because my family came from a third world country. But so does the American nightmare. The people suffering, not just here, but also around the world due to policies, due to exploitation, due to colonization, due to a lot of issues that are directly at hand to America. So there's a lot of blood on the United States' hand, and a lot of people don't want to leave their home country, but the situations that have been created there are forcing people to leave. Like my mother would have loved to stay in Mexico, but unfortunately due to poverty, which had a lot to do with NAFTA and what happened in 1994, directly caused by the United States, issues that created this migration. So is it a better opportunity here? Yes, my people come here and we send our money back to our ancestors. Would we just like to stay where we're from? Yeah, that would be a much better option.
As an immigrant myself, I definitely think that the American dream still exists. We long for the opportunities that people have here in America, for the job opportunities that people have, the innovations that are available in this free market economy, this capitalist country.
So the American dream is in the eye of the beholder. If you're an immigrant or if you live here, it's different. It's going to be different.
I don't like the idea of the American dream, but I am a person who's still going to always believe in hope. If you work hard and you take advantage of opportunities, you can make a difference in your life. I mean, you're an example of it. I'm so amazed by you. I think it's awesome what you're doing at such a young age. I am very, very impressed with you three. My hope for you is that you stay open-minded and that you're always willing to be learners and not just listeners.
Yeah.
So.
All right, great.
All right, and that is the end of the episode, an hour-long show here, but to finish the point off, the American dream, I definitely think it is dying. I don't think it's completely dead yet because people still obviously want to come to the United States. We still bring in immigrants every single year, but the number is actually lessening. And I think more and more people are coming to the realization now that, I don't know, maybe looking at data or hearing different things, that there are much more things to the world than just America. And I hope that sort of idea gets drilled into people's heads, because it's the sort of brain rot American exceptionalism that I absolutely hate to talk to when I talk to Americans. Because, you know, I try to say to them that, you know, there's a lot of other countries out there other than the United States, and they're doing a lot like better things in certain ways. And, you know, maybe we should look to them for certain ideas, or maybe even consider them as like the better country, or at least the better country in this certain category. Because I think that's very important to recognize, because whenever you bring up America's number one in something, which not number one in a lot anymore. I mean, what are we number one in? Military size, amount of guns, and, you know, infant mortality. I don't know, not in infant mortality, that was a joke. But again, you know, we're number one in military size and guns, but it's like, if you look at, you know, any other European country, it's like they're first in, you know, if it's like quality of life, or, you know, like the wellness of the poor, or wealth distribution, or for instance, their healthcare system. You know, I think those are the things we should strive to be number one in. You know, I don't think that having the biggest military so we can just stomp around the world and just cause damage and mayhem wherever we want, I don't think that's a good thing. And I don't think that having the most amount of guns is something to boast about either, because, you know, look where it gets us. We have the more gun deaths than every other country except Brazil, I think, but we have the highest per capita. No, I think it's actually, I think El Salvador does, but we have the second most gun deaths in the world. I think Brazil is the only one that's actually higher than us. But anyways, that's the end of this episode. The original video will be linked down below, and if you haven't watched my episode 16, where it was liberal teens versus conservative parents, that was AiA episode 16, I would highly recommend checking that out. But anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it, and until next time, see you.